Hello everyone. Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, this is where we go deep into the truths of the twin flame journey. So, a warm welcome to everyone here, for all the new subscribers, and for all of you who have been here since the start with me. So, as I was saying, for all the new subscribers, if you're new here, this is where we are going into the truths of the twin flame journey. Truths and wisdom, of course. So, not the sugar coated version where there is a where there is a methodical process to get to your destination. Nope. Sadly, the twin flame journey doesn't work that way, and that too in a twin flame, in a monadic twin flame journey, that is certainly not the case. So that's why no sugar coated version here, but the real initiation of collapse, purging, and sacred union. And tonight's topic is a tough one, and many of you guys may feel a little triggered depending on which vibration you guys may be, looking at this from. So it's also a tough one in many layers because the thing is, as divine feminines, we may have all felt this, and it's something that has broken many of us divine feminines on this path. And it's something that no one talks about openly. So, again, my DM and I sat through it, thought about it, and we really thought that this will be a good topic to talk about, especially now that personally I know his perspective and I know mine. And of course, working with so many of you guys over the years, this is something that when you look at it from a 3D, 4D perspective, it can really be like, for the ego, this will be a huge trigger word. Disgust, like, especially how can my divine masculine feel that way? But you know what? I'm going to accompany this discourse with another one. Why at some point in our journey, we divine feminines also go through that. So this is like a two-part series. So let's explore our divine masculine's perspective first, because this is something no one talks about openly. So we're going to talk about why your divine masculine can look at you with disgust. So the moment when he recoils, when his eyes seem to say, "You are too much, I don't want this, I don't want you," and yet deep down, this connection is real. But what is really, really happening in those moments? And that's what I'm going to break down for you today. It's 7:23 a.m. I thought I would have a quick discourse before my workday starts. So yes. So let's start with definitions, all right? There are two kinds of disgust. The first is ordinary disgust, the one that applies in the 3D world, that's when you dislike something, maybe like a food tastes bad, maybe a smell makes you recoil, maybe you just don't vibe with a person. That's surface level, that's preference. But then there's something I would call sacred disgust. Sacred disgust is not about preference, it's not about dislike, it's about the soul coming face to face with truth it cannot get handled. So when your divine masculine looks at you with disgust, really, it's not because you are unattractive. And when we are in that position, of course, we do feel like we are unattractive. We feel like we are the most unattractive person in the whole wide world, beyond our own justification, right? And it's also not because you're unworthy, and it's not because you've done something wrong. It's because your very presence confronts him with a mirror of truth that his ego cannot yet digest. Think about it like this. Imagine you've avoided looking at yourself in the mirror for years, and then one day you're forced to look. What you see isn't pretty. You don't blame yourself for not having you know, showered, for example. But in that moment, you might blame the mirror. And that's what's happening here. You are the mirror, and your divine masculine's disgust is not about you. It's about what he sees in himself reflected back. And it's very, very painful, to feel that way. Many of us feel like totally affected by this, and we know it internally. Our divine masculine thinks of us as too much. Our divine masculine finds us unattractive. It's because I'm like this, it's because I'm like that. Maybe I don't look like a supermodel, or maybe if I was like this, he would have liked me more. But this is all in the physical. Even if you were what you think you would be, he would still look at you with that disgust. That is the underlying truth. Nothing in what you are would make him change his mind because of that analogy that I just presented before you. Because he's looking at himself through you, and he thinks of himself as such. So that's why I wanted to go deeper into the mirror effect. The divine feminine is not just a person to your divine masculine. We are a living transmission. Our energy carries codes that activate his soul. And what that means is when he looks at you, he sees both beauty and the horror of his own unhealed self. He sees his shame, he sees his guilt, the ways he has failed to love, the gap between who he is right now and who he knows deep down he's meant to be. And because the human ego hates to be exposed, he projects that feeling outward instead of thinking that he feels disgusted with himself. He thinks that he feels disgusted with you. And this is why some of you would have noticed that when you shine, when you succeed, when you glow, instead of admiration, and instead of admiring you, admiration. Instead of admiration, he starts to grow colder. And maybe he might even avoid you. Maybe he rolls his eyes in sarcasm. Maybe even mocks you. And it hurts because you think, why can't he just be happy for me? Why does my love or my light trigger him so much? But what you have to understand is he's not recoiling from you. He's recoiling from his own shadow that you're activating. So for example, you had just succeeded in your line of work and you're showing it to him to celebrate it, but instead he pushes you away and tells you he never wants to talk to you ever again. Or you show him a breakthrough. You see, for him it's like it goes back to him. So that's why I wanted to go deep into the nervous system. All right? What has got the nervous system do with this ego collapse? So let's talk about the body for a moment. The nervous system reacts to energy it cannot process. So when your love hits him, when your energy pierces his field, his body goes into survival mode. Fight, flight, and freeze. So he might lash out, and this is something that many divine feminines in many of our sessions we have observed this, especially when you feel like he was the inspiration for something that you have done, or both of you talked about it when you were in your when you were in the beginning stages of meeting one another, the ideas you have thought about, you've made it happen, and you really wanted to thank him, but he just mistakes it, and he rejects you back. So that's what I mean by fight, flight, and freeze. So he might lash out, he might avoid you, he might shut down, and then the mind creates a story to justify the reaction. That you are too much, you're manipulative, you're immature, you're trying to throw your success before his face, and that you are not right for him in every way possible. It's that NPC or that karmic for category 1, or not being anyone at all, category 2, that is right for me. But here's the deeper truth: his ego is collapsing, his nervous system is overwhelmed, and the disgust you see on his face is simply his body saying that he can't hold this yet. It is not rejection of your essence, it's rejection of his own ability to meet your essence. And every twin flame connection involves purging. And as the divine feminine, we have to understand it's often grief, longing, and collapse. And for our beloved divine masculine, it's often shame, guilt, and self-hatred. That's why sacred disgust is part of his purge. It forces him to confront illusions. It strips away the false identities he has built. It drags his shadows into the light. Think about your own healing. When you faced your shadow, did you smile at it? No. In fact, as divine feminines, we all recoil. We felt sick at the sight was what was hiding inside. That's exactly what he's doing. Only difference is you are the mirror making him see it. So the recoil is not proof that you are failing him. It's proof that you're activating him. And why is it so sacred? You might ask me this question, why is this sacred? Why is this just another form of cruelty? Because sacred disgust is what burns away illusion. It is the ego's last defense before surrender. It is often the stage that comes right before reverence. So one day he will look back and realize the very moments he recalled were the moments you awakened him the most. And that's the reality. I've seen this over and over, both in my own journey and in the journeys of my clients. Men who mocked, who recoiled, who acted cold, years later confessing, you were the only one who ever truly impacted me, For category 1, no matter how many karmics and NPCs they may go through, and category 2, no matter how much they try to integrate with the world, and even in their void, even in their path of working on themselves, realizing themselves, being an eternal single man, the void can never be replaced, even with finding the unknown, because in a twin flame journey, the unknown is the other half of the soul. So don't be fooled. His disgust is not the end of your story. It is the part of the refinement that is going to add so much more essence in your story together. So what do you do when this happens? You see, this is the golden question. Like, what do you do when this happens? The biggest mistake is to collapse, to think that you must be unworthy. You must tone yourself down. Oh my goodness, many divine feminines, we can be really guilty of trying to tone ourselves down, trying to act less intelligent, trying to pretend that you are deity, or like you're trying to be like the 3D illustration of a woman that can get a man. And then like I've got clients who would start signing up for courses about trying to attract a man. It's not going to work in the twin flame journey, because come on, he's the other he's the excuse me, he's the other half of our soul. So no amount of performance is ever going to get him in. Of course, in a 3D context, those techniques may work. We won't know because we're on a twin flame journey, right? So yeah, of course, there will be a lot of self-judgment at this stage. Like you'll think that, that we must be less emotional, less spiritual, less intense. No, that's not the lesson here. Our work as the divine feminine is to hold steady, to embody our light without apology, to recognize his disgust as his purge and not our truth. Yes, it hurts. And yes, it feels personal. But if you internalize it, you'll weaken your field. You stand steady, you will allow the alchemy to unfold. So the Next time you see that look, or you feel that he looks or feels disgusted about you, remember it's not your failure, it is his purge. And as much as you may think that our the way our divine masculine perceives us, especially when he says those mean words like this and that, it is never the same as ordinary rejection or dislike. It's not like, when someone meets someone at a bar and they say, I'm not interested, over your divine masculine spending all this time with you and dismissing you like nothing ever existed. You see the difference here. So that's why it is his ego's recoil against the frequency you embody, because as the divine feminines, we carry the living transmission of our divine masculine's own soul truth, and that light exposes the parts of him that are unhealed, small, shame based, or entangled in the matrix. And the disgust is actually a projection of his self disgust reflected onto you. That's why, like I said, and I'll just emphasize it again, ordinary disgust is based on judgment, preference, actual dislike of a person or situation. Sacred disgust is a spiritual mirror. Your divine masculine sees you, but it's really confronting himself. The parts he has disowned, your purity, your frequency, your love feels like too much because they burn through his illusion. So that's why, really, think of it like holding a mirror to someone who literally hasn't cleared himself out of his debris for a long, 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 long time. But you see, this becomes one of the most confusing and painful moments on the twin flame path. Because when he does that, when he feels that way, you feel it too. And it's piercing and it makes you question everything. How could he feel about me like that way? How could he think about me like that way? And you'll be like wondering, why even does his opinion of you matter so much? And you're probably like the person who moved on just like that. But with your DM, everything collapses. For example, you're never the jealous type. But the moment you think your DM could be with someone, it floods it. But it's also part of the purging process. For example, other people's opinions never matter to you, but everything your DM thinks about you, it's like bullets to your heart. But here's the truth, the look is never about you know, never was and never could. It all goes down to his. It all goes down to him, actually. So that's the reason why it's so important for us to recognize where we are. So remember, sacred disgust is not the death of your love story. It is our soul's way of stripping away everything false, that so that only the real union can remain. And also remember, love in its most purest, most profound way, it's beyond all of this. And that's the reason why you need to understand this, alright? He looks at you with sacred disgust because your love exposes him. His body shows rejection, but his soul knows reverence. So, what looks like the ugliest rejection is often the clearest sign that you're awakening him most powerfully. See, can you see the game changer here? So, that's why my question for you is, have you experienced this? That look of disgust that broke your heart, but later you realize it was his mirror moment? So share your story below, because your experience might be a lifeline for another divine feminine who needs to hear it tonight. And guys, if you want a one-on-one session with me, you can book via my website, alright? And all of my sessions are conducted via Zoom live, so you can ask me as many questions as you want during our session. And of course, if you need a little assistance with clearing the blocks, clearing the noise, you can book one of my healings. With that, in the next video, I'm going to flip the mirror and talk about why you, as the divine feminine, eventually look at him with disgust. And that's just as sacred. Just as sacred. Alright then, see you all again. Bye bye.